And good morning, everybody. Dan Thomas here at home from News 4 for Weather School for Kids. It's another fun segment. We do this every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 11 a.m. And we do weather experiments. We talk about the weather. It's designed to educate kids who are being educated from home and give parents a break. But what I'm finding out is that a lot of parents like to sign on and stay on and sort of watch what we're doing. We're going to talk about a whole lot of things today. And we're going to kick things off a little differently by reading a few pages of a weather book. So we haven't done that yet. This is a cool weather book well, you'll see it's special to me. And so that'll last probably 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll get into some of these super cool experiments and discussions that we have lined up. But let me give the camera to my photographer today. It's my wife, Deanna. Can you see her? Yeah, flip. All right, I don't know if she was on camera or not, but she is running it. Sadie's right here, and then my son Hudson is hanging out on the side, and he's ready to watch as well. Let's get right to it with this weather book. Now again, this is not any, I guess, ordinary book. It's a special book because look at the title, if you can read. Dan the Weatherman. Looks like it was made for me. Looks like it was made back in the dark ages, pretty close. This was actually given to me by a school in Arkansas. I used to live in Arkansas, and they had it on their shelves. I came and spoke to the kids, and they said, hey, you have to leave the school with this book. So we're not going to read the whole thing, but there's some things in the book that I want to cover today in my little discussion about weather. So, Dan the Weatherman. Dan the Weatherman, is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? Ask Dan the Weatherman. Dan works in a weather station. Every day he studies the weather. He looks out the window. He sees dark clouds in the sky. These clouds are big and gray. They hang low in the sky. Clouds are made up of tiny drops of water. Dan goes outside the weather station to find out about the weather. Oh, it's very windy. The wind blows Dan's hat right off his head. Wind is air that moves. We're going to talk about wind this morning. Air is everywhere. You can't see the air, but you can feel it when it blows. Wind blows through the trees. Wind blows the kites up high. Wind even blows the clouds and makes them move. Hey, look at this. Dan looks up at the weather vane. On top of a high pole, the weather vane turns with the wind. It tells us which way the wind blows. On top of another pole, 3 little cups spin around. This machine tells us how fast the wind blows near the ground. Ooh, watch, Dan sends up a balloon high in the sky. Up the balloon flies until it breaks. This weather balloon tells how fast the wind blows high up in the sky. The clouds grow bigger and bigger. They become darker and darker. At last, the clouds get so big and heavy that drops of rain begin to fall down. People put on their raincoats. They open their umbrellas. Dan runs into the weather station. Rumble, rumble, lightning flashes across the sky. Thunder roars through the air. The rain pours down out of the clouds. It falls on the housetops and on the streets. Rattle, rattle, the rain turns into hail. Hail looks like little snowballs. Hail falls in the summertime. We're going to talk about hail in a few minutes as well. The hail rattles upon the housetops and on the streets, and then the storm is over. The sun comes out. Look, there's a rainbow in the sky. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. The rainbow looks like a bridge of colors across the sky. How much rain fell out of those clouds? Let's find out. Dan looks into the rain bucket, which stands near the weather station. He measures the rain that fell into it. The weatherman uses many tools to learn about the weather. Dan looks at a thermometer. A thermometer tells how hot or cold it is. This is called the temperature. We're going to skip a bunch of pages here. People like to know what the weather will be, so Dan sends his weather report to the newspapers and the telephone company. You can tell how old this book is. Dan sends it to the radio and television stations, or if he works on television, he just tells people about it on TV. In the morning, people listen to the weather report on the radio and the television. They read the weather report in the newspaper, and then they know what to wear, and they can plan what to do. The farmer listens to the weather report. That helps him know when to plant or when to gather crops. A truck driver calls up to find out about the weather. He does not want to drive into deep snow. Almost done. A pilot, we're going to talk about pilot stuff today too. A pilot studies the weather map at the airport. His plane is ready to take off. The pilot wants to keep away from bad storms. And at night, Dan the weatherman is on television. He stands in front of a big map. He writes out on this map and he tells about the weather. Look at that old-fashioned television camera. And this is the way they used to do the weather on television, with a pointer and a little board behind them. A little different today on TV. Finally, is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? Ask Dan the weatherman. He knows. So sort of a perfect book for me and for all the meteorologists out there, because it talks about what we do every single day. Now, let's transition and talk about some of the things that were addressed in that book. We've got some fun things to share this morning. First of all, in the Dan the Weatherman book, we heard about the weather station. Hey, I'm a meteorologist. Hey, what is a meteorologist, you wonder? A meteorologist must know a lot about meteors, right? Sort of. I'm a meteorologist, generally knows something about meteors, but meteors are out in outer space. Meteorologists study the weather, and the weather always happens on Earth in our atmosphere. Our atmosphere is that layer of air that surrounds the Earth within 200 miles of the ground. So outside of about 200 miles, the atmosphere is done, and we call that outer space, and that's where meteors are. Sometimes meteors actually come into our atmosphere and they burn up, and we call them shooting stars. But it's called meteorologist, so that is the fancy name for weatherman or weather person. And so at News 4, we look at information like, which is on my home weather station right here. The temperature, so indoors, our house right now, it's 72 degrees. Temperature is just a way to find out how much heat energy is in the air. We've got no wind right now because the wind measuring device is indoors. We got 9/10 or 9/100ths of an inch of rain overnight, and it shows information about the humidity and the air pressure. This is how we can measure rain, and you can get one of these if you don't have a rain gauge at home. This could probably be $3, maybe at Walmart or Target, something like that. And it just is a little cylinder that you put outdoors. You can actually bracket it onto something, and as the rain comes in there, you will know how much rain fell in your area. But this is my rain gauge, and so it's electronic. And so the rain goes in here. The rain went in here last night, and it sends a signal to my weather station here, so when I get up in the morning, I know how much rain fell. Now, if you remember Dan the Weatherman book, we had one of these babies. This is called an anemometer. You can see how it spins when the wind blows. Really nice, huh? And so sometimes the wind really blows. It's going to blow a lot more hard this afternoon. It's going to get breezier later today, but I can make this. Oh, you want to spin it, Hudson? Nice and gentle.
Karen is also asking what's the brand of the weather station.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll take care of that. Lacrosse. I got this thing at Costco. Hey, listen, if you want to get a home weather station, a lot of people ask me this a lot. What should I get? Davis Instruments makes a very good piece of equipment. It's pretty expensive. Most people who are weather hobbyists don't need that at home. This, I don't know, this is like probably $80, and it came with a whole thing at Costco around Christmas time. So don't spend too much because most people don't need that. But here's my anemometer, and so I can make it go pretty quickly. Hey, let's take a look. Let's see if we get, let's spin it, and we'll see how fast the wind speed goes. Let's see. What is it going, about 4 miles an hour? Yeah. Hudson's trying to make it go about 4. Yeah, about 4. Now, this is not, you know, if you have one of these things, if you get an anemometer, you want to put it as high as you can. Ideally, you put it above the top of your house by about 10 feet. I got my first anemometer when I was like 12 for Christmas, and my dad was going to hook it up. And I don't know where he was going to put it, but I said, Dad, just so you know, it's going to go on the roof, but 10 feet higher than the roof. So he went up, there's a 2-story house. He went up a super tall extension ladder and got a super tall pole and put it up there. Here, I'm not that crazy, so I just put it on top of the kids' play set outside. So it doesn't get a great measurement, but it does pretty well. Let's talk a little more about wind. So we talked about what the atmosphere does, and it makes our weather. Wind is interesting. Wind is just moving air. So if I go like this, the air is moved and it makes a little wind in here. Wind or air always moves from high pressure to low pressure. So here is my wife's birthday balloon from like, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And watch this, watch my hand. Here's a balloon that's sort of squishy, but if I push down, the air pushes out from under my hand toward the area that has lower pressure. Air always goes from high pressure to low pressure, and that's very important. We've got another cool experiment. Now, if you were with me a week ago, I did this Facebook Live weather school thing, and I did a couple of experiments that didn't go so great. So hopefully this is a success. We will see. I'm baking in the oven, so you can do this at home. It's super easy with mom's and dad's help. Baking in the oven some rice. So let's take that out. Ooh, I'm burning some rice. Ew, yucky. It's gonna stink up the house. So that looks golden brown. But what I wanna show you, and Hudson, if you could do me a favor, hon, and if you're gonna stand here, just don't move an inch, because as we move around, that may mess us up. Now I've got an incense stick from my good neighbor here. Jenny just let me borrow this, so thank you, Jenny, if you're watching. Now what's gonna happen here in just a moment is we've got hot rice with rising air, and we've got cold, icy cold water here. So air is rising above the rice, but it's probably sinking here a little bit. So if I take this incense stick and lay it right here, hopefully we'll see the lower pressure above this hot rice draw in some of that smoke. Let's see what happens. If we're all still. It's trying. Please work. It's supposed to draw it that way, but if there's the slightest movement in the room, it doesn't work so great. Hey, try it. The internet says it works. It's supposed to work. Let me put this out so we don't burn down the house. Hold with me. All right. Let's do something that will definitely work. Let's do something that will definitely work. And this is sort of cool. You can do this at home if you have a little box fan. And it shows that, wind obviously blows things around, but wind blowing air in one direction can make lower pressure moving objects behind the wind. So sort of confusing, but just watch me get this thing out of the way. All right. We've got a ping pong ball here. Let's move this. Now the ping pong ball, obviously, I can make that move by just turning on the fan. And I'm gonna blow air at it. Watch it move. Yeah, it's taking off. But at the same time, I can turn the fan the other way, and because I'm blowing air this way, it will draw through lower pressure the ping pong ball toward it. So it's not being blown that way, it's being sucked that way. All right, Hudson, I need you to move on because I'm gonna turn it on high. Please step aside. Go ahead. Thank you. All right, here we go. Let's see what happens. Watch the ping pong ball, and it sucks it right toward it. So wind can blow things toward or suck things toward as well. Blow things away and suck things toward as well. Now we also talked a little bit about light in that we made a rainbow. We're gonna get to that in a minute, but I wanna talk about how this time of year, thank you, Hudson, this time of year, the sun can be super duper strong. So we'll do a little experiment and talk about why in the winter time you don't get sunburn, but in the summertime you can get cooked. So here is Tennessee, right here. And here's my sun. Now in the summertime, the sun is right overhead. And so if you step outdoors in a hot summer day, it is baking Tennessee. And you see all the sun's energy is focused in one small area. But in the wintertime, when we have a sun angle that's a lot more tilted, that same amount of energy is spread over a much greater area. So that's why it doesn't get as hot in the winter and we don't get sunburned. But again, back to the summer, it's right overhead. So all that energy is concentrated on a much smaller area. And so there's much more energy per people's, backyard. And it gets hotter and you get sunburned. So don't forget, next time you're out this time of year, believe it or not, right now the sun is as strong as it is in late August. So late August, you can get burned by the pool. You need to put on sunscreen for sure. Hey, let's take a look at light and break it apart. We got a prism here, so you can get one of these at the store. What's the problem? Oh, phone, thanks. Okay, you can do that, hon. All right, so let's go up here to somewhere dark and break some light apart into all, oops, you okay? The hazards of being my camera operator. We would have Sadie do this today because she's been my camera operator, but it's a little more involved today. So my wife is shooting this. All right, Hudson, can you not turn on the light on just in this area just for a second? All right, so we have a prism, and if you focus the prism, hold on 1 second. Focus the prism just right. If you look on that wall to the left, can you see what it looks like? I'll get it just right in a second. A rainbow. So we've got all the colors of the visible light spectrum. We've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Isn't that cool? You can make this at home. You may actually, if you have a glass shower at home, we have a glass shower. This can happen naturally as the sun comes in and goes through 2 panels of the glass, and you may see a natural rainbow certain times a year through that double glass shower. So, sort of neat. The sun is real interesting. The sun gives us so much energy, all different wavelengths. We call it the electromagnetic spectrum. Visible light is just a little part of that, but we've got gamma rays, X-rays, UV radiation, infrared radio waves, all that comes from the sun. But the stuff that we see every day with our eyes is called visible light. Hey, last thing, we talked about the Weatherman in that Dan the Weatherman book, and it was talking about pilots, how pilots need weather information. I'll be honest with you, without meteorologists, pilots would be in a lot of trouble because they need to know the weather. And so one of the aspects of that is hail can cause a big problem for pilots. I don't know if you can see that or not. Do we need to turn off this light? Let me just turn off the flow supply for a sec. But pilots, yeah, it's good. Hey, this, can you imagine if you got hit by this or an airplane? This is the largest hailstone we've ever recorded. It fell on July 23rd, 2010 in Vivian, South Dakota, so in the middle of the summer, 8 inches in diameter, just under 2 pounds. That's the size of a volleyball. Can you imagine something that big falling out of the sky? So hail can get that big. It grows in thunderstorms for hours. You don't want to be outdoors when it's hailing, and airplanes and pilots certainly don't want to fly through thunderstorms with this hail. You can see this is the leading edge of a wing. I used to be in the Air Force, and I showed this picture as I trained pilots about weather hazards. And then here's another one. Look at this. This is back from the 1950s. These pilots, big cockpit here, which is where the pilots and navigators sit, went through thunderstorms with hail. Now look at this. This is an airplane engine that was probably hit by baseball-sized hail. That engine got all smashed up. And then the finale, this is the last picture. This is the best one. You would have, the kids watching right now, you know what happens if you forget your homework at home. The teacher's like, come on, man. You get in a little trouble. Look at this. Can you imagine how much trouble this Air Force pilot got into, or military pilot got into, when he or she came back to the base and said, sorry, boss, I messed up our $20 or $30 million aircraft because I went too close to a thunderstorm. Unbelievable. So just interesting how weather impacts everybody. It's such a fascinating topic. Hopefully you learned something today on Weather School for Kids. Do we have any questions, sweetheart?
Karen wants to know, what size hail do we normally get in Tennessee?
Yeah, most common hail in Tennessee is probably 3/4 inch, so about the size of a nickel or so, maybe dime size. Sometimes it can get as big as quarters. And when it gets as big as quarters, that's 1 inch in diameter. We call that severe size hail. So for a severe thunderstorm, you need at least 1 inch diameter hail, some really gusty winds or a tornado. So the hail has to be at least 1 inch in diameter. I have seen hail here in Tennessee, reports of it to the size of baseballs and softballs. It's happened. And when I lived in Oklahoma many years ago in the Air Force, we had softball size hail in my town twice. Thankfully, it didn't hit my house. When softball size hail hits, if there's enough of it, it will come through your roof. So can you imagine having a hailstorm with softball size hail? It's not all softball size, a lot of it's smaller, but some of that comes through your roof and makes big giant holes. So unreal.
And Sarah Beth said hi.
Hey Sarah Beth, thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you, sweetheart, for running the camera. Kids, thank you for being great. And I'm not sure who's on tomorrow, but 11 o'clock tomorrow, we do it again from someone else's house. Have a great day and stay safe. Hey, I'm on News 4 at noon if you can watch. Take care.